Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. We are week 3 into the series, the study of the book of Titus. And, basically we're talking about what it looks like to live a godly life. We talked about the grace of God first, then, growing spiritual maturity. And then this week we're talking about the call for discipleship. And speaking of discipleship, and I know all of us here have been discipled in our own ways, whether it be in our spiritual growth or, like our skill set. So first question is, what makes a good disciple? And what are your experiences of being discipled?
I think first of all, it's like someone who follows, listens, and also applies the teaching that they are being taught. And I think the only one of the few examples of Peter being a bad disciple is when he attacked the guard and cut off the ear.
Oh.
I think the phrase what I would put is like they know their place. They know when they should act out of leadership and when they should follow another leadership. So I think, in some sense, knowing their place and knowing to the specific extent of submission, I feel.
I think a good disciple is having a heart to follow God.
Yeah.
I think that's the first. And then you have a very good understanding of the morals and values of God, and then your action match those principles. You have integrity.
Yeah.
But then overall, I think the heart is still more important because, like for example, in Revelations, God told the Ephesians church that it's good that you hate all the evil people, but then you lost your first love of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can only be a disciple as well if you also want to learn. So if there's no heart to learn, no heart to be, teachable, then it's hard to be a disciple.
Yeah.
And I think, so that is definitely one thing that makes a good disciple as well. But how about your own experiences with being discipled as well? How was it like for you guys?
So I did this YWAM course where the word discipleship is in the title of the course.
Discipleship Training School.
Yes, thank you, YWAM. Anyways, it is training for us to be proper disciples. And I had this one leader who really made it his goal to stretch me and pull me out of my comfort zone, which was all for good intent. But he was definitely pulling me to areas that was really foreign to me, and way out of my comfort zone. I did not like it, but in the end, I agree that was probably one of the best things he's done for me. Yeah.
Well, I don't have much experience in Christian discipleship, but I really respect my thesis supervisor back at university.
Yeah.
He is the music director as well as the vice president of the university, and he is a really good leader with a very strong and clear vision, and the way he guides me is to not spoon feed me. And to really challenge my thinking, and also always asking why what you do benefit other people, and that really impact me, and I'm still trying to apply what he teaches to my work and my life.
I think a lot of times where I think I learn most from people who basically how they live their lives, because I think I'm like a kinesthetic learner, so I gotta do stuff as well to learn, right? So I think in a sense modeling my life after these people and seeing the way they do life, I think is a good teaching moment for me. So I guess that's one way for me to be discipled by these people. So I think it's just seeing how they live their lives, their lives with integrity, how they really choose to be with the people, choose to connect. I think just seeing that inspires me, and I was like, okay, if that's what it looks like to be like a godly leader, then I want to emulate that as well. So I think that's one of the ways for me is really live with people, be with the people. I think also even time in YWAM as well. Same thing. I did the same thing that Dom did, but just in a different country.
Okay.
And just living with the leaders and seeing how they care for people. I think that taught me a lot as well. So, like we said, today's this weekend's message was really focusing on the call of discipleship, and John spoke on 3 things. ATM, we all know it as
cha-ching,
cha-ching, cha-ching, but really is not cha-ching, cha-ching in his context. But let's talk about the first one, A. a disciple acquires he acquires knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the truth. And we also heard Pastor Ed talk about, there's a difference between knowledge and truth. You just don't want to have knowledge, but you also want to have truth where, that becomes like life changing when you actually live your life in truth. So our behavior, the whole idea is that our behavior is based on what we believe, which is true. If you believe that someone is great, you treat them well. If you believe they're not so great, then well. So, do you guys find yourself to be more of someone who is an influencer or a follower, actually?
I would say both. In the way that my personal interest affects others and affects my home in particular. For example, my mom has a very, very old computer monitor. I think 20 years old. Okay. And the pixels are kind of dissolved or something.
Dissolved.
Yeah, you can see a pool of discolored pixels in the middle of the screen.
Okay.
But then my personality is I like to make others people happy. And I like to keep on improving everything. And so I influenced her to get a new monitor, and I helped her buy it. I installed it, and she works more efficiently now. Her life is a better
place, which means Keith's life is a better place.
That's very true. That's very true.
I think same. I'll say both, but I feel I was more of a follower in my previous years, and I'm actually currently embracing new areas of being an influencer, which I say is pretty out of my element. Like, I always have this concern that what if I'm not a good leader and I could accidentally screw people up, whether accidentally say something very theologically wrong, or I could, I don't know, be too brutally honest. I don't know. Yeah, I tend to overthink, and I am a people pleaser. But yeah, those things really cause me to hesitate when embracing that influencer role. Right. But I have seen myself occasionally be having good influence, I hope.
Well, have you found like any moments do you have any examples of how you've influenced people?
Yeah, for example, literally yesterday I just flew back from a mission trip, right? And I feel what God really put on my assignment, on my to-do list, is to really grow out the youth.
Okay.
And I basically did it by leading by example, by doing it, and then also breaking it down and then letting them do it, And yeah, I think that's how, and then a few of them actually told me that I didn't know how much of an influence I was, but they were saying I made it so much easier for them, and I didn't even know that. So that was kind of cool. That was a nice surprise for me.
Yeah.
I have a funny story to share.
Yeah, let's hear this.
I always believe I'm an influencer, naively or irrelevantly. Yeah. The sports company Decathlon.
Yeah.
I actually went to their office before they even had a retail store.
Oh, really?
To buy a scooter.
Okay.
And I tested the scooter in this random office corridor. And I thought I was, I'm so influencer before everybody. I already know Decathlon.
About Decathlon. I see. Well, I know for me, if I truly believe in a product, I will sell it hard.
Right.
So for example, back then there was Groupon. And, I was a huge believer of Groupon because I got this watch that's normally over 1,000 for under 1,000. So I'm I still have it. This from Groupon. Just need to change the battery. That was it. But I wanted the strap. And so because I was telling people about Groupon, suddenly everyone around me was on Groupon. Or that time there was ClassPass, and I was ClassPass is so good, and everyone's on ClassPass. So I would say if there's something that I strongly believe in, I will talk about it. And then one thing that I've definitely I would say most of the time I'm a follower, but there've been times where if someone's trying to buy something, I was well, should I enable this person or should I not enable this person?
Do it.
Depends, right? So, but one time I was enabling this person, and he made a purchase for something that he doesn't really need, a Lego set.
Oh.
Millennium Falcon. So, anyways,
Okay.
A guy could always use more Lego. It's alright.
so
It's
Yeah,
justifiable.
the new McLaren P1 just released, I think.
I think you should get it. I think will be worth it for you. Yeah. Yeah, do it. But we want to influence people to make great choices with their life and be good financial stewards of their money. So yes, but you know, we also want to also acquire knowledge of God, right? And to be influenced by Him too. And so one of the things is that we do need to spend time with Him. So how have you seen like fellowshipping with God impact the way you think or act?
I remember having actually when people ask me when especially the youth when they say like, oh, I struggle with hearing God, or like I don't hear God, you know, one of the things I always say is that first of all you just need to get familiar with His voice, right? The analogy I always use is, you know, when my parents, if I'm in a crowd of people and I hear one of my parents sneeze, I know it's them. You know, like I'm so used to their voice. And so that's kind of what I tell the youth about, like recognizing God's voice. And I feel another thing that helps is that you know God's heart. And when you know God's heart, you know how He talks, I feel. And so, yeah, I think the more I hang out with God, the more I understand His heart and I understand just the way He works, to the point where sometimes He doesn't even have to tell me sometimes. I just know instinctively what is on His heart that He wants to achieve. Yeah.
Well, for me, I would be a very, very different person, because fellowship with God urges me to have a different worldview and behaviors. So yesterday at restaurant, I witnessed this conversation that I remember very vividly. Is two young guys. They just sat down in front of me and they were discussing what happened just now at the cashier. And so the cashier mistaken one person's meal to be 2 mains instead of 3 mains.
Right.
And she charged him $40 instead of $49.
Okay.
And then that guy was kind of teasing his friend. You are too honest. Like we should have like stolen those $9.
Yeah.
And I was so shocked because why so dishonest? But reflect back on it. If I don't know God, if I don't want to follow God, then I would absolutely milk everything. I would take all the advantage.
Yeah. I would say, like, you know, sometimes you just also even watch, like, I mean, take away the God factor for just a moment, just even watch about, like, the people that you hang out with. And, you know, some of the mannerisms they pick up. Like, I think when you hang out long enough with youth, oh, this actually pains me sometimes, is that you start picking up some of their slang. Like, I don't like...
Yeah.
Like it's just unavoidable. Like the people that you hang out with, you will pick up their mannerisms, their slang, maybe even the way they dress. Like I mean, first season, like when I was doing youth, like the boys all dressed the same way, which was like the standard like denim shirt, like shorts or something like that. For you know, it was just
Very true. Back then in high school, we were all trying to wear like skateboarder outfit.
Yeah, so it's like. Who you hang out with tends to, like, you know, rub off.
But then I totally look like a nerd.
It's like I refuse. I stand strong to what I want to dress. Yeah, I would say, like, also when you spend time with the Lord, you understand His heart, and then you understand like His values. Again, going back to, like, you know, hanging out with people and, you know, their values rubbing off you as well. You kind of like take away what you learn, right? Like for example, like say the time that I spent with my dad, I know that his value is for family, so that's also like rubbed off on me as well. So time spent with the Lord, fellowshipping with the Lord, will rub off, you know, onto you, like what is important to His heart, what is close to your heart. And I realized as well is that subconsciously you do things that are representative of the Lord without maybe even intentionally doing it as well. And I think what was funny was you talked about the guy trying to say, oh, let's take away, like, you know, let's go with the $40, whatever it is, right? So one time, I think I was getting a bottle of water. This was in high school. I was getting a bottle of water, and then it came, then 2 bottles came out, and I was like, yo, 2 bottles, let's go. And then my friend's like, but you're Christian. And I was like, oh. I returned the bottle.
It's a blessing from God.
I said, but I think it's like, I think she was basically saying that because she saw how I behaved in a previous occasion where I upheld like, you know, morals, and then this
Okay.
time I was like, oh, let's go with, we've got 2 bottles. She's like, but then last time you did that, and I was like, okay, let me go return the bottle to 7-Eleven and, you know, let's go, you know. So yeah, I think sometimes people also watch you as well and aware of like how you are. For some reason, that incident just stuck to my mind because this was a close friend, and sometimes people really observe what you do or what you say without you like even intentionally be like, everyone look at me, this is how I am, you know. So it's really like how you carry your life does
Yeah.
speak a lot as well.
I
And
mean,
God's always watching on top of that.
yeah.
You know, just to add on since we're on this
Yeah.
topic, we just had RAM, which is youth camp. You know,
Uh-huh.
in the campsite on the last day when we were all everyone packed up and left. It was just me. You know, like we set up the van. I was just walking. I looked down and I found like a $500 bill. I was like, oh my gosh, right? And I'll be honest. I was like, all right, if this is the missionaries' money, you know, they need the money,
Yeah.
all right. So I asked them. I was like, hey, did any of you lose money? They said no. I was like, all right, it's fine, right? But then later on, I just had this conviction, and literally the second person I asked, it was theirs.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, here you go.
I mean, I have found money on the floor and I did not ask anyone. I just,
Yeah.
I mean, no, I waited. Okay, I found like a wad of money in Starbucks, and I
Wow.
waited. No one came back for the money, and I was like, thanks.
Yeah.
So I think like discipleship, well, it begins with spending time with the one whom you are a disciple of. So if you want to become a disciple of the Lord, got to spend time with him. If not, then it won't exactly be a very effective disciple, would it be? And it wouldn't be very effective discipleship, right? So that's something to be aware of, is and the only way that we can acquire knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the truth is to spend time with the Lord. So I think it obviously becomes about like, you know, how is your, like, what you believe will influence how you behave. All right, so the next one that he talked about, John talked about, was the T, right? So T being a disciple teaches. So not only studies and understands, but willing to teach the truth. So again, like we talked about how like our life is, you know, what we say, what we carry, like can really impact people. People watch us more so than we think. So how can we make sure that we are not a stumbling block to those around us while presenting the good news of the gospel?
I don't know. I always think you can always stumble people, whatever you do. Depends.
On how they take it, right?
Yeah.
I think they always have people that might take offense.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, okay, but you said this.
Yeah. But then to answer your question, I think I would just try to really pay attention to what I hear and also what I say. So that it is really understood in my mind rather than just repeating whatever I heard. And I will pay attention to my actions. And am I really aligning with God's value with my actions? When for example, if I keep on chasing after money or material possessions,
Is that aligned with God's
Yeah.
like heart, or is that just like, you know, fulfilling like the selfish desires of the heart?
yeah, selfish desires.
I think there are some basic things that, like, you know, there are lines that you don't cross. Like, for example, if you're talking to someone of an opposing religion, you don't go, oh no, you're wrong. I think obviously the best thing to do is to stay tuned into God. Like one of the things that I try to get a good habit of is that whenever I'm getting something from God, I'm almost keeping my mind empty. Like whatever comes, I say it. I don't even let my mind just try to like temper it, you know, like twist it a bit to my liking. You know, I think that's how, like we discussed last grind, that's how like we don't have sound teachings, you know. There's always like flawed or opinionated or biased teachings. So yeah, I think keep your eyes on God and don't even twist it. Don't even try. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely agree with what you said, that sometimes, like, whatever we say could be a stumbling block to people because that's just their own prejudice or interpretation of the word. And I mean, our response, we can't control people's reactions or like how they respond to what we say or do. But I think if we know that we're living according to the word and living like a life that's worthy of the calling that's, upon our lives, then I think we're good. Really also watching the situation as well. Like, if we read in First Corinthians about how like there was the whole like argument like do we eat food offered to the idols, etc. I think we mentioned about this before, is like they won't do it because it's going to stumble the people. So I think the idea is like we're not trying to put all these restrictive rules around us just so that we don't stumble people. But I think in a way to shift it around, like what is the most loving thing to do for people, right? How can we support them? Like, for example, if someone say struggling with alcohol, I'm not going to be like, hey, let's go to the bar and hang out. Is that loving? Not really. That's really just being a stumbling block as well. And so I think that's and actually there's something that I spoke about with someone recently, is like just the importance of fellowshipping with one another, and to speak about the things of God and to encourage each other. For you guys, like having spiritual community, like how has that been for you, like fellowshipping with them? Like how has that encouraged you in your faith?
I'll be honest, as an extrovert, I love being with people. And I think, especially being with people who are of the same lifestyle that you kind of strive to achieve, it feels your journey so much faster, Like there was a group of missionaries that came over and I barely knew them, but then I just had this urge to just be with them, and when I did, I just felt that I was just like as if I was one of them, It was such a weird feeling, but I feel the power of community is just so. Again, I'm an extrovert, so
and I'm introvert. No, I do like people activities. It's just that it keeps on draining my battery. But I really enjoy my own fellowship. It just gives me that connection with other Christians. And I also value it because it is one of the rare places to practice your faith. Because this faith is not an isolated faith. You have to put it into action with other people, and so throughout the years I just grew tighter with those people. They know me better and I know them better, and I really enjoy those caring and encouraging moments. Pray together, Bible study together, and then go to events together and share our thoughts, our opinions.
Like I would say, it's important to have a group that you can fellowship with and grow together in your faith. And I think for me, it's been a journey of learning how to be vulnerable, because I think sometimes it's like, it's not like, I'm afraid that they're going to take what I share and then throw it back at me. But I think it's just like, maybe just vulnerability, or just like not afraid of being judged, but it's just more like, I don't like to talk about my feelings sometimes. So it's like, let me just put it in a box and put it in a corner and then forget about it. But I think sometimes it's like we do need to process our feelings. If not, it's just gonna amount into something like a lot bigger. So, and I think it's like having a spiritual community is a safe space to do that as well. So it's just kind of like trusting the people that you have as well. Again, it's not like I have trust issues. I think it's just like choosing to share emotions does take a lot of courage for me sometimes.
I used to dislike the fellowship. My thought is, oh, these people don't know me. These people don't understand me. They are so stupid. And but then with God's grace, I just stayed there for since 2018, I think. But throughout that time, the relationship grew, and understanding grew, and love from God grew, and you're just able to appreciate other people, and then it's funny when you hear them describe yourself back to you. It's such a funny, but I think sometimes pleasant feeling.
Because like, oh, I didn't know I appeared like this to people. It is encouraging.
Encouraging.
But as you should grow in relationship. If you've known them since 2018, you should be growing in relationship. If you aren't, then there's it's something wrong with that group. something very wrong. All right, so acquire, teach. The last one we want to talk about is modeling, which we kind of mentioned briefly. A disciple models, basically models after the person they learn from and teach about. So I just want to read from actually Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 7 to 9. It says, you shall teach them diligently, them being the statutes of the Lord, to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So this is basically an example of passing the baton. And, you know, I know we talked about legacy before, and this is something to actually consider as well, is like, what are some ways by which we can influence the generations after us? You know, maybe we can share about, like, you know, any experience that we've had in discipling people as well. Like, what does that look like in our lives? Like, what have been some opportunities? What have been some challenges? But yeah, I think the importance of passing the baton. Let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, I think my mother is a very effective grower, encourager in faith, because I don't agree with everything she does, but she puts a lot of Bible verses and reminders around the apartment. Like,
also, she really passing the baton by really,
like
she's really living
passing them,
Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 6 right now.
Yeah, and lots of reminders to be peaceful, to be forgiving, and then some Bible verse from Proverbs or something, and then we serve the house, we serve the Lord in our house, and that is very good reminders every day. And she often reminds us of God's grace, encourages us to have faith in God when we encounter obstacles or when we have doubts in life. Again, keeps on urging us to pray, even though we may not do it, but then I think the reminder is very helpful. And then she also always shared testimonies and other miracles that happened in her life and in people around her. And it's also good that she's also open to questions about faith, and
good.
we can discuss how God is, like during dinner time or something.
I think one of the biggest values that my parents kind of taught me is that they want their seating to be my floor. So I kind of like try to repeat that culture with myself in my life, you know, that some of the youths, I'm trying to make my seating their floor, like giving them that head start. One of the youths that I really like, I'm so excited for, I'm so excited to see where he's gonna head out. Last year he was kind of called out to be an intercessor. And so on just this mission trip, you know, the whole time I was like, all right, do you know what to do? Okay, what do you think an intercessor is gonna do now? You know, I kind of like, I'm not like saying like you know, I'm not spoon feeding him. I'm being like, all right, what do you think you should do? All right, how do you think we should do it? Right, and he gives his answer. I'm like, all right, I'll say like, okay, yeah, that's good, but let's try also do this as well. And so like, you know, I right before our session, you know, I'd grab him and like, come on, let's prayer walk the area, you know, let's intercede for the area, and that's what we did. And that's why this youth is really opening up to me, and which is allowing me to like pour out so much of my experiences. But then that kind of brings me to one of my struggles, is that like, I can only give so much to what they are hungry for. You know, I think I've came up to my youth pastor and I asked him, I was like, I want to pour more into these youth's lives, but then, you know, some of them are still, you know, keeping a distance away. And I'm not asking, how do I do this? How do I approach them? And I think at most is just live by example. You know, let your actions speak louder than your words, and hopefully, right, from them constantly seeing your continuous pattern of behavior, you know, when the moment they're ready to open up, they know who to go to. So
I mean, sometimes you are like, your personality will be geared for certain personalities. I mean, we're called to disciple all, like, you know, go and make disciples of all nations, right? And actually, like, this is something that we heard recently, is that, you know, actually we can't effectively disciple 12 people. It's not possible. and one of them might de facto become your Judas. Maybe do 12 people, right? So
just disciple 11 people.
Yeah, exactly. Disciple 11 people. Well, that's perfect. Done. Should have stuck to 11, right? But it's by then, even realistically, I think you're just based off like personal responsibilities and work and everything. Effectively, you can only disciple like at most like 3 to 4 people. And I mean that was something, and then something also that we like when me and Josh did youth ministry back then is that the way is like we were wired to specific people too, like certain personalities were geared towards like me or to Josh, and it's like for me I think the way I would disciple is usually really to spend time with them, to be there for them, to really ask questions. I think the main thing is like there's only so much that I can tell someone what they should do. But if they come to their own realization, then that's more powerful. It's just like more like, hey, eat your vegetables, eat your vegetables, eat your vegetables. Like, but what for? But then we realize, oh, the importance of eating vegetables is for healthy, and then you experience it yourself. Then okay, fine, I made that decision myself. So I think the idea of like discipling them is really not like you mentioned spoon feeding them, but really modeling your life. Walking with them, asking them questions, and choosing to be there for them even in the highs and lows of life. Because you want to be there with them in those times as well. I mean, it's as if a discipler leaves his disciple or her disciple in that low times, like what kind of discipler are you as well? So I think there's definitely I think modeling is important. And again, a lot of my things that I do is because I've watched other people like do it, which is why I've like, okay, that works for me. I've been impacted by that way, so therefore I'm going to model my life like reflecting those values as well. So yeah, definitely a disciple models after the person they learn from and teach about. So yeah, I would say like we all have different communities that we have that we are in, that we find ourselves in, different spheres of influence. I mean, like for you it's the youth, for you it's like I guess the production team, and for me it's like I guess the general church, and so I think it's like whatever community that we are in, I think about like how can we model our lives after the Lord, and how can we disciple the people that the Lord puts our path. Because sometimes the Lord will just bring people, and it's maybe that's the one that maybe it's not like, oh, can you disciple me? It's more like it just becomes that person that you disciple, and doing life with people. So I think the call for discipleship is high. Sometimes people don't know they need it, but yeah. So let's just ask the Lord, who are you putting in our path today? How can I, bring your goodness to this person today? So
I always want to be discipled by really, really senior pastors.
Pastor Ed.
No, not necessarily pastors, but really senior and experienced people.
Yeah.
It feels like they have lots of wisdom to share.
Well, who knows? The Lord may bring someone down your path.
Amen.
Amen. And on that note, thank you for joining us on The Grind, and we'll see you next time. Bye.